What is going on, everybody? My name is Kneeckoh and welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet VGC Moveset guide. Today we're talking about the water type Pokemon that is absolutely taking over Regulation E, that being MILOTIC. I've used this Pokemon on a handful of teams that I've featured on the channel already, and it's just so good. So today I want to talk about why this Pokemon's so good and why you should consider adding it to your team builder, because it's so freaking awesome. So if this is your first time here on the channel, make sure you are subbed for more videos like this in the future, and let me know in the comments below what your thoughts on MILOTIC are. But let's get into it. So MILOTIC is super fun and has been kind of a staple as far as VGC goes for a long time, mainly because of its crazy bulk, right? This Pokemon is very bulky with 95 HP, 79 defense, and 125 special defense. Being able to just max out your health on this thing and give yourself a lot of defense with a little bit of special attack investment makes this Pokemon really threatening, and it's just something that can sit in front of stuff. The big thing with this Pokemon is competitive. Competitive is so viable right now as far as VGC goes, because there are so many Pokemon running around, whether it be Weirdier, Landorus, Arcanine, just tons of Pokemon that are running around with the Intimidate ability, or even things that don't necessarily intimidate but lower stats. So things like Icy Wind are very prevalent. You're seeing, Shadow Balls that can drop special defense. Things like that are all going to make MILOTIC very viable in the fact that it can get a competitive boost from this, boosting its special attack by 2 stages, making it just an absolute monster to deal with. And because of its bulk, this is a massive buff for this when it does get competitive off, allowing it to just hit things for a ton of damage. Really fun Pokemon to play with. Now, like I said, I've played with a handful of teams that all feature MILOTIC. Another Pokemon that does a similar purpose, if you're looking for another water type, maybe MILOTIC doesn't necessarily fit the team you're using, or maybe you need some extra coverage. Empoleon is another Pokemon that I'm absolutely in love with in this format. I really like Empoleon. I've featured that on a handful of teams as well. Really, it comes down to I need water coverage and I'm not running Water Pond or Urshifu. What do I want, Empoleon or MILOTIC? Like, these are my 2 options. Like, do I have steel coverage? Cool, I do. I'm running MILOTIC. If I don't have steel coverage, cool, I'm running Empoleon, right? They serve very similar purposes and can run very similar sets, and are just very fun Pokemon. But MILOTIC is one that I just feel has a little more variety than Empoleon does, just because of the fact that this thing can have some really cheeky sets, and I'm going to talk about one in particular that I used in a video recently that just absolutely shuts down the opposing team. So very big fan of that particular set. So the set that I have here is one that I featured a couple times. Competitive, obviously. This one is running leftovers with Grass, Terra typing. I have Recover, Scald, Ice Beam, and Terra Blast. Now, Scald is fantastic. They took it away from so many Pokemon going into Scarlet and Violet, and MILOTIC is one of the few Pokemon, other than like Sinistcha, and I want to say like maybe Politoed gets it, but I'm not positive of that. Let's actually look real quick. What other Pokemon get Scald in Scarlet and Violet? Let's see. Sinistcha, Walking Wake, Gyarados, Slowking, Dragalge, Vaporeon, Inteleon, Goodra. So yeah, not a lot of Pokemon have access to this move, and it's a very good move because of that 30% chance to burn the target. Actually just incredibly solid for this particular Pokemon. So Scald is fantastic. We have Ice Beam for coverage into those grass type Pokemon that are going to be problematic, and then finally we have Grass with Terra Blast, and this is really nice into just some ground type Pokemon that may cause problems for you. It's good into Water Pond that can cause problems for you if it terastallizes. So a lot of cases where Grass and Terra Blast is actually going to be quite beneficial for you, and I have really been enjoying it. It also just gives you that defensive coverage into opposing Pokemon like Rillaboom, Ogerpon, looking at things like Sinistcha. A lot of good coverage that you can account for if you Terra Grass on this Pokemon. Now, the spread I'm running, again, max HP. I put a bunch of defense. I got a little bit of special attack, a little bit of special defense, and just a touch of speed. Just to outspeed opposing MILOTICs, just a little bit of extra speed. A lot of them aren't really investing in speed, so it's just a hair to throw those extra 4 points. And this is a set that I've used a handful of times over. It's a really fun set to use, and I have been getting a lot of results from it. But the second set that I have here for you is so freaking fun to use. It's so good. So I have Coil, MILOTIC, so I'm raising my attack, which really doesn't benefit MILOTIC in any way, but the other 2 do. I have defense boost by 1 and accuracy boost by 1. This is actually massive for MILOTIC, okay? Because you're getting the defensive buffs, you're getting crazy good defensive buffs, which helps you play into things like Iron Hand, especially with that Grass Terra typing to avoid the wild charges and things of that nature. I'm able to take those hits that much better. So defense boost is crazy, but accuracy is the big thing. That allows me to run Hydro Pump with more success and do more damage after I get my competitive boost. And it's also going to allow me to run Hypnosis, which is really solid because it's a base 60% accuracy, but with those coil boosts, you're going to be able to land that many more Hypnosis and cause a lot of problems for the opposing team. And it's just a really fun scenario to put your MILOTIC in. I am a big fan of this. This one runs Citrus Berry, and I would say a good partner for this particular MILOTIC set, because you're not running Recover, is something like Sinistra. Putting Sinistra next to this is actually really solid, and running it on maybe a Trick Room team can be really solid because you can rotate Sinistra in and get that health back. Pretty solid combo there, but this is a really, really fun set. And again, there are so many Intimidators running around, so Pokemon that don't like necessarily looking at this. Lando is one that's running around rampantly right now. Lando's really solid because you're seeing all of those, seeing all the Ogerpon that hit really hard. Having that Intimidate setter is very nice. So you're seeing a lot of Lando. Hisuian Arcanine still seeing some play. Again, I mentioned Weirdeer. It's a little more niche pick, but Weirdeer is making some rounds, especially with MILOTIC. Weirdeer is actually pretty solid as far as MILOTIC teams go, because you can actually skill swap your Intimidate onto the opposing Pokemon and proc your own competitive, which is really, really nice for MILOTIC. So Weirdeer is actually another Pokemon that is seeing some use, not a ton of use. It's a very niche Pokemon, like I mentioned, but it is a Pokemon with Intimidate that is seeing some play. So it is something to note in that regard. Again, MILOTIC with this low mid-lane speed tier is actually really solid into Trick Room matchups. So if you don't necessarily have like a counter to Trick Room, just having MILOTIC and being able to sit out there and take hits and also deal damage back is really solid as far as a Trick Room Pokemon goes. So these Pokemon really don't like seeing MILOTIC, but looking at other Pokemon that don't like seeing MILOTIC, Empoleon really has a hard time in MILOTIC because a lot of them are running like Ice Beam, Hydro Pump, or Water Pledge, and like Flash Cannon, and none of those are going to hit MILOTIC very hard. You're able to play very carefully into Empoleon, especially if you do have the Hypnosis set, but also Terra Blast into Empoleon is going to deal with it very effectively. So that is something to note. You could just kind of sit in front of Empoleon and not worry about this Pokemon at all. Very solid matchup. Heatran is another one that just doesn't really enjoy the existence of MILOTIC. You do have to be careful about Assault Vest Terra Blast Heatran. That can cause problems for you. However, if it does Terra, you can hit it with an Ice Beam and do some pretty significant damage to this Pokemon. So definitely worth playing into Heatran with this. I really like that matchup personally. So there's just a lot of Pokemon that you really, really have a good time with. Now, other Pokemon that are going to pair nicely with this, Iron Hands is a really good Pokemon. It allows you to fake out. It allows you to set up Coil if you have it, or it allows you to just start dishing out some damage with your other moves. Really solid Pokemon to run with this. Rillaboom is another really solid one because you can lay grassy terrain if you're running the Grass Terra Blast set. You can do more damage with your Terra Blast. That's really nice as well. So Rillaboom, pretty solid. Again, you get that fake out pressure. You have that option. Another Pokemon that's actually really solid with this is Alolan Ninetales. You already have an incredibly bulky Pokemon, so having something that could quickly set up Aura Veil is very nice for Alolan, for MILOTIC. So Alolan Ninetales is actually really solid as a partner for this Pokemon. I ran that on a recent team that featured Infernape. So really solid combo of Pokemon in that regard as well. Again, I mentioned Sinistra. Sinistra being able to come out and just boost that HP back up is incredibly solid. So really, really like the Sinistra combo for MILOTIC as well. Just an incredibly solid duo that you're going to get a lot of benefit from. Now, Pokemon that you don't necessarily like seeing with MILOTIC, I mentioned earlier, not Thundurus, Iron Hands. Iron Hands is one that is going to cause problems for you because it can fake you out. It can hit you with Wild Charge if you don't Terra Grass. So you have to be very cautious around Iron Hands. That is one that is going to cause a handful of problems. Opposing Sinistra, if you're not Terra'd, can be a problem. Sinistra can hit you with, Matcha Gotcha, and that's going to do some pretty significant damage. So you have to be very careful around opposing Sinistras. Something to note in that regard. Rillabooms are a problem. For this particular Pokemon, you're going to have a lot of issues if you get Wood Hammered or Grassy Glided, any of those things. That's going to cause a lot of issues for MILOTIC. As far as Trick Room teams goes, you are seeing some Vikavolt usage. Vikavolt can cause some problems. Obviously, this is a very slow Pokemon with a really high base special attack. Vikavolt is running around on the ladder just because it is just a solid Trick Room Pokemon. So Vikavolt is something that you have to be cautious about. It's going to do some pretty big damage to MILOTIC unless you're Terra Grass. That is something to keep an eye on. Other Pokemon that are causing problems, I'm trying to think here. just looking at what we have available, Ludicolo is seeing some use with being just a fast, swift swimmer. That can cause some problems. Opposing Ninetales can cause problems if they get Aura Veil up. You're going to have an issue with that. But honestly, the biggest thing with MILOTIC is just its ability to sustain hits and just be a nuisance for opposing Pokemon with the form of competitive and like either Recover or Hypnosis Coil. Like just a really solid Pokemon to sit out in front of stuff and dish out a ton of damage. So really solid. It deters, intimidates. It can deal some massive damage in return. Just a really solid nuisance Pokemon, and one that is just continuing to pop up. I'm seeing a fair bit of it myself. I'm using it a ton because, again, if I'm not running Water Shifu or Ogerpon, why would I not throw MILOTIC on there if I don't need that steel coverage from something like an Empoleon? So I really love this Pokemon. Like, when Empoleon and MILOTIC have been my favorite two water Pokemon to use in Regulation E. They're just solid options. Also, if you consider the fact that, like, you could throw a Rocky Helmet on this and play very comfortably into an Urshifu, that is also a really solid option for this Pokemon. So there's just a lot that this covers for and is really solid. You could even run safety goggles and not necessarily have to run Terra Grass to avoid like a Moongus or something like that, and just be able to kind of set up Coil and stuff and do Hypnosis shenanigans. So again, just a solid Pokemon all around. I really love MILOTIC. So that is going to be it for this video, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think of MILOTIC. But if this is your first time, but if at any point you enjoyed the video, leave a like and sub for more videos like this in the future. Check out the Discord, people over there hanging out playing Pokemon all the time. And if you want to see anything else from me, check out any of the videos that you see here on screen. But until next time, peace.